Guys, welcome to a new TF2 video, but today we're doing something a little different. We're going to be trying to figure out what is the hardest class to play in TF2, and then this is going to be just like, what's the hardest to play overall as a very new player. You just got the game, you heard all about this, you haven't seen a single video on it, but you've heard many people talk about it, and you just got the game, so all you got are stock weapons. I wanted to see what would be the hardest and not even the most difficult class to learn and play as when you first start out. So we're going to go class by class. First, we're going to start with the Scout. Now, he's not the lowest HP. His HP actually tied with the engineer and the sniper, but the thing with him is being the fastest class and with the double jump and with simple weapons. You think, oh, he'd be the easiest. He couldn't be the hardest. Well, not really. The way his scattergun works and the way how his mobility works, you wouldn't really already know he has a double jump. As you're just playing your game, you'd be like, oh, I shoot, I run in, and I keep dying. Why is it, but then you figure out the double jump, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I can unlock these new mobilities. Then you figure out you can double jump backwards. And then once you figure that out, he's now really easy to play. Now, he starts out slightly difficult, but he probably wouldn't be starting out as more difficult as other classes would be, which I'll get into later. So, and his speed being the fastest of all the classes, again, the mobility is something that you wouldn't be able to figure out, obviously, starting off. So we'll put him probably at that mid, so like a middle ground learning curve, to where at first you're playing him, he's really fast, you're dying easily, and your scattergun, you're getting used to the way a shotgun actually works. But then once you figure out his double jump and you figure out other mobilities such as strafing, jumping forward, jumping backward, side to side, understanding how projectiles work, then I believe that you could probably become a really easy class to play. That is not even mentioning his pistol and his bat. Meleeing is pretty fun as Scout, and if you're a new player, which I was, obviously, I really love just meleeing everyone, because you go in being fast, you sneak behind someone, you hit like a heavy who's trying to shoot you, boom, you're done. So like I said, I think I'm going to put him around like a middle tier area. Alright, next is Soldier. Now, Soldier is actually, I would say, one of the most easiest class to learn. Like, think of this, you are a soldier, suddenly you are giving a rocket launcher, a shotgun, and a shovel. Like, that right there is your baseline for how everything works. Rocket launcher, what does it do? Shoots rocket. Where? At enemies. How? I don't know. But that's what happens. You look at your rocket launcher and you shoot the enemy and he blows up. You miss? Well, guess what? You got splash damage. Now, only thing I would think would be the hardest thing to learn about a soldier would be his rocket jumping. Now, rocket jumping is its own thing. If you watch other people rocket jump, you're like, I look down, I shoot, and I fly? Wow! And not even that, if you start pairing it with the shovel, then you start market gardening, or you can do even more damage with it. So I think it gets easy at first, but it's like the Scout, but it's the opposite. Easy at first, but harder, but then it gets harder to play as time goes on, learning new mobility, trying to perfect him, trying to make everything work. And you end up not using your shotgun as much because you're using your rocket launcher a lot. But then you realize that shotgun's pretty good for close range sometimes if you can't hit your shots, and when you go against a pyro, which will be our next class to talk about. But let's, for now, put Soldier at least the easy category. One of the easiest class to play. Not the easiest, but an easy category. Now, going over to Pyro, and I would say Pyro would probably be one of the hardest classes to play, because you don't really know about your air blast. If you don't really read how the weapon works, which I'm going to just, for our sakes, no one does. You get your flamethrower and you have a shotgun. You're like, oh, flamethrower, I can just WM1, which is what you all do. Which you're like, oh, that'd be pretty easy. But then you're like, oh, but I don't want to play him. I suck at long ranges and I keep dying against demo men and soldiers and heavies. How do I fix this? Well, you're not going to know about air blast until you accidentally hit the right mouse button. But now you got to time your air blast. You got to time it with rockets, which are not impossible, but very, very difficult to do. And not just that, you got to reflect pills perfectly, not perfectly. You got to find them, reflect sticky bombs, and for heavy, you got to realize that you can reflect players. You're not going to automatically think you can reflect players until you see you can reflect projectiles. So I'd say he probably put him in the hard category. I mean, he's got a simple weapon with the shotgun and fire axe, which is probably going to be using a lot more than just the flamethrower. Next, Demo Man. Now, Demo Man being like the same HP as the Pyro, which is 175. You see that you get a grenade launcher and a sticky bomb launcher, which, again, against sticky bomb launcher, you would be very hard to try to figure out how to do, because you shoot stickies, they're not exploding. What do I do? So you're just not going to use it at all. You're going to start using your grenade launcher, which is, I shoot pills at enemies. But the thing what makes them hard instead of at least medium is because you got to figure out how arcs work, how, the pill's going to roll, and then you realize that it doesn't explode on impact, only explodes when you hit someone on impact, and you got to wait for it to explode. But then, again, with the sticky bomb launcher, what puts it in the hard category is, again, it's going to take a bit to try to figure out how to, detonate them until you right-click, and then you realize, not just that, again with mobility, like with the scout, it starts hard, but then gets easy once you realize you can sticky jump. But then you got to realize you don't have as much health as you would soldier when you were 200 instead of 175. And now you realize that you can blow yourself up. You can fly across the arena, and not just that, you can pill jump, which is even harder. And luckily I'm saying stock, because if we were getting into Demo Knight, that'd be a whole different category with trimping and whatnot. So we're not going to talk about that. Then you get the bottle. It's one of the simplest things ever. The thing that makes it hard is understanding how the hit detection works, which is a whole other story. Now, we're going to be talking about the Heavy. Now, I'd say he would be the easiest class to play, with a whopping 300 health and a giant minigun to go with. You're missing? Guess what? You got a minigun to, you're hitting all the guys that you're missing. Only thing I would think to make him hard is understanding how his mobility works. He's the slowest class with only, about 77% speed, unlike everyone else. So he's slow, but he deals a lot of damage. So you're like, I'm the tank. I need to go in and fight. So you're going in with the giant minigun. He's not that hard to play. And hear all the heavy mains screaming, but what about, the sandwich and stuff like this? No, this is stock. This is stuff you get on day one. You're going to have the fist, which you already understand how that's going to work, and you already have the minigun and shotgun, which both simplest things ever. So Heavy would be the easiest class to play and one of the best classes to start out as a new beginner. Next is Engineer. Now Engineer, he's probably going to be a hard class to learn at first. You got a shotgun, pistol, wrench. You think that's all you can do. But then you see that you have these other two things, a primary PDA and a secondary PDA, a build tool and a demolish tool. Well, what can those do? You click on it, and you realize you can build sentries and dispensers. Now, at that point, you're like, I can build these, set them up. But here's the thing. You build them, but you don't know you're supposed to hit them with the wrench. Nothing is teaching you, obviously, unless you're going to read the hints, but still, say you don't. You put it down. You just have a regular sentry dispenser. You have no idea what they do until you realize you're losing metal. And you're like, how do I get metal? Then you're going to go over what do I do? And you get ammo packs. Oh wait, that gives you metal. And then you found out your max is 200. Then you don't realize you can add other other levels. And then you start hitting them, and you're like, wait, this levels them up. This heals them. What's happening? You know what I mean? Then you start figuring out. Not even to mention the teleporters. You don't even know what they do if it's like I place one here, place one here. Now what? How do I get back? How does it work? I think this would be a hard class as well to very much learn. Especially, it's just the whole sentry thing. It would be very hard. Like I said, you haven't watched anything. Most you'd be doing is your shotgun and pistol. Then at the time, you don't even use your pistol. So I'd probably put him also in the hard category just for the sentries. Next is Medic. Now, Medic, honestly, would probably be a mid, like the Scout, be middle to play, because you see a syringe gun, you're like, it's kind of like a minigun, it's got fast firing, right? But, I've kind of got, a bit of a health point, and you realize, I'm Medic, I could heal others, and you get your minigun, what does this do? And you hit, and you're trying to use it, but it's not doing anything. Then you hit a teammate, I can heal them. And so then you realize that you can heal, and you can, shoot enemies. But then, what happens now? What's this Ubercharge thing? You wouldn't realize until you right-click. So I think he'd be easy just to use as a healing, but they wouldn't realize what an Ubercharge was until later on. Then they wouldn't even realize what Uber was. I'm invincible. It runs out. Why is it running out? How do I get it back up again? So I think he'd probably be in the middle, because just of how you first learn him, but then you start understanding how he works, and you realize, I need to stay behind enemy lines because I need to heal them. And then this is before you figure out how a battle medic works, and this is just a regular bone saw, so you don't understand that. And not just that, you don't even have the other meta-guns, which is a whole different experience trying to figure out how those work. But still, I think medic would probably go in the middle category. Second to last is Sniper. I think sniper would also go as a very easy class to learn because you get a sniper rifle, SMG, and a weapon. That's literally it. You right click the scope because let's say you played games before. Look, you know how that works. Even if you didn't, you'd probably be like, what does it do, right? How do I scope in? You scope. You're gonna be like, oh, I want to kill this guy. I'm gonna use headshots. You're gonna hit on the headshot. You see a charge. What does this do? But every time you shoot, you see it go down. You're gonna understand. Oh, the more charge, the more damage. I say he put easy, not an easiest class, but an easy class to very much learn, especially with the kukri being a very easy weapon to understand, and the SMG as well, because you just shoot. You know what I mean? Last, but certainly not least, spy. Again, with the engineer, he has a bunch of stuff. He has a primary PDA disguise kit, an invisible watch, a sapper, a revolver, and a knife. I would probably say that he's a very hard class to learn because you get a revolver, I know what to do with that. You see a knife, oh, it's just a melee, but you don't understand it's a backstab, the instant kill backstab, until you go up behind someone and see that it instantly kills them. And then you start trying to hit them everywhere else. Why does it work? But then once you figure that out, you now have to figure out how to use a disguise kit. Like, you don't know how that works. You're going to be running into people. You're going to be, oh, what is this? You're going to be, you're going to be acting like a bot, I would say. You're falsely, disguising as them. And you're like, oh, why? But then you start hitting them. It's like, what? Well, I thought it was disguise. Then you realize that, oh, no. When I attack, they can see me. And then you've got to know that you can go invisible, which is right-click. Which, again, right-clicking is the whole thing where you don't understand it. And you right click to go invisible, then you see deplete, like how do I get it back up? It's not until you realize you run over ammo packs to build up your cloak meter, and then you realize that if they bump into you, they can see you. So you're like, oh, they can see me, I'm invisible, but they're cheating. They're not. You're just getting bumped into. Then not even that, you got the sapper, which doesn't do anything it only does damage to buildings, doesn't even do anything to players, and so you're just like, what do I do with this thing? And it's not until you realize that if you go up to a building, you see the outline, and you put it on the weapon. This, I would honestly have to say, I think Spy is the definitive hardest class to learn because I didn't know how to use them until I watched Lazy Purple's video on how it feels to play Spy. Big shout out to him. Or am I saying big shout out to him as if I'm bigger than him? I'm not. I just want to thank him for that. But the thing is, if you were playing, you wouldn't understand how Spy works at all. I don't see many people playing Spy except for tryhards and people who have known how to use them. Not even that, you gotta learn how to do trick stabs, you gotta learn hiding spots, you gotta learn your hitbox. It's insane. Half the time, backstabs don't even work. You gotta understand how face stabs work, and how, again, with the hitbox, enemy hitbox. It's insane. I would honestly say that Spy is the hardest class to learn. So what did we learn today? Well, we learned that out of all the classes, Heavy is the easiest class to play, easiest class to learn and do. And, I'm not mad about that because you see a lot of heavies on your team that are new players. Well, guess what? You're going to be doing some damage. You might not win, but at least they're going to be learning how to play along the way. But you see a spy on your team that's a noob, he's going to be going in for those butter knife stabs or, just trying to revolver everyone or see him disguised as a scout the entire time or just stay invisible and not know what the heck to do. So, honestly, I think that's a pretty good explanation of how everything works. Health, I don't think health and speed really matters as just gameplay-wise. Because you can have the most health, but least health, but still be either easy to hard to learn. But then again, everyone is different. I'm just saying if you were just completely new with this, no outside world help at all, I'd say Spy is the hardest class to learn. And with all that being said, thank you for watching, everybody, and I will see you all in the next video. This is 2 Pros 1 Game, signing off.